This is your PIR for Wednesday, April 6th, 2022. All the facts you need to know for the Patriot on the go. Patriots of the world, I hope you had a good evening, day, afternoon, wherever you may be as you're listening to this. So let's get right into it. Okay, announcements. I want to remind you that in the description box below, you will find links where you can follow PIR on Gab, on Telegram, on Rumble, on BitChute, and over to PIR website. Now, notation on the PIR website, I'll be redoing a bunch of that and adding new content in the very near future. So I will let you know when we have that updated and some interesting changes that you'll find over there. And again, thank you to everyone who signed up over on Gab and on Telegram. And also more on BitChute and Rumble. Appreciate it very much. All right, let's get right into it. Item 1, space weather, which is brought to us by Laura Walker of the OracleReport.com. Experience is the key word today. Experience from hard lessons, wisdom gained over time, and objective understanding life's storms guides us. The sun and the earth are resonating the frequency of silence. Silence, or the time to think before speaking, is recommended with communications. Mercury is conjunct the Eris point, which could bring wild propaganda. Our experiences give us the ability to quietly discern truth. Wow. Spot on, as always. And the wild propaganda, yeah. It is amazing. I actually commented to someone yesterday that I've never in my life seen such incredible withholding of the truth and wild propaganda coming out. And there's a reason behind this, a very interesting psychological reason in the PSYOPs war that they're using against the world, the American people, and the people of Europe, and everyone actually. And they're being quite successful at it, very successful. People whom I know who, I guess you would say they're awake, or you think they would be, have taken it hook, line, and sinker. And it's wise, like the space weather recommends today, is to think before you speak. Okay, because there is a delusion, a great delusion upon the land right now, and it's being done by design and for reason. Okay, so let's move right along. Keep that in mind. Item 2, economics, currencies, cryptos, equities, and precious metals. Yeah, taking a look at this, markets are down basically everywhere, but again, no major drops. It is tightly controlled. They're doing everything they can. Europe is down pretty heavy, and that's because these boomerang effects of the sanctions they're putting against Russia, they continue putting out more. And it's pretty amazing. Hungary has come out and said that they would be paying for Russian gas in rubles, because they said they had no alternative. There was no way they could do something different. And immediately they started getting blasted just because they wanted to maintain their infrastructure and be able for their citizens to heat their homes and their industries to run. Because they have no choice, they say, well, we will do this. Just because they're not getting on the bandwagon and totally ruining their economy, the EU says, we'll ruin it for you. And they want to put sanctions on Hungary. And what crime is it that Hungary is doing? They don't want their economy to fall into shambles. They don't want their citizens to go without heat and hot water. They don't want their industries to shut down. And they're being demonized for it. It's amazing to watch the psychological operations, the self-destructive behavior of the New World Order. We truly are in, people, a battle of good against evil, and the economic ramifications of this are going to be earth-changing, without a doubt. I mean, this is the black swan event. We're watching it unfold, and hyperinflation is coming. Be aware of this. More and more articles are coming out about food and potential food shortages and this, that, and the other, and we will see this. And we're seeing it right now, just hints of it in the market. As I'm looking at the charts today in Europe, yeah, there's more downward pressure, 2%, 2%, 2.5, 2.28%. In all the European markets, they're down. Taking a look at, some Asian markets, they're mostly down too. Shanghai is up 0.02%. I mean, we talk about fractionally, but it's the only one. And we do have some down almost 2%, Asian Dow, Nikkei, Hang Seng. So it's affecting a lot. Taking a look at gold, silver, and crude oil. Yeah, gold's at 1,927, silver 24.27. Those are both slightly down right now. Crude oil up to 103.26. But again, all of those too, because we have the London Metals Exchange and all these other globalist institutions that set the price artificially of these commodities. It is still tightly controlled, but the grip on that is going to go. And that's going to happen by the continued backing of currencies, primarily the BRICS nations, with hard assets. So, and we're seeing more and more of that. See, cryptos are down sharply. Nothing over, I started to say 4%. I take that back. Litecoin's down 4.62%. Bitcoin's down also. All the cryptos, basically the majors, are down. Bitcoin's currently at 44,910. XRP 97 cents. Excuse me. 79.68. It just changed. All right, so that was dropping also. Let's see what else economically. Yeah, the deals continue to go on. The big one was with Hungary, saying that they would use rubles. Lithuania said that they are going to cut off all gas purchases from Russia. And a lot of nations are following suit. I don't know what they're thinking. Are they deluded enough to actually think that they are going to go this hard line and eventually prompt Russia into war, which would eventually, maybe quickly, turn into a nuclear war, and that they will defeat them and just go in and take it? What else can they be thinking? It's like, no, we won't pay for it. We won't get it from you, but that's what they use. I mean, do they actually think that Russia's going to give in, say, oh, gee, we're sorry, here, take everything you want from us? No. Or do they actually think in their minds that they're going to go to war with Russia? Which is, I'll remind everyone again, just in case you forgot, they have more nuclear weapons and larger nuclear weapons than anyone in the entire world, and they're not afraid to use them. They actually have a philosophy that they would use first strikes. And this is the reason, and we'll get into geopolitical aspects for that in just a moment, that things are so potentially dangerous right now. Let's see, rest economic. Stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't see. They're hiding it from everybody. There are large tranches of money moving around between nations. A lot going on. People are trying to position themselves well. They're basically putting all their chips on the table where they think it may end up. And I'm just thinking there's a bunch of nations betting on the wrong horse, if you know what I mean. Yeah, very apropos, the horsemen of the apocalypse. Anyway, enough of the economics. Stay positive, though, people, because there are ways you can make money. I know some people are making money hand over fist right now, primarily with cryptos and a few other things, but, it can be done. Even in downward markets, you have to be creative about this. Meditate, pray, ask for answers, get guidance. Be careful, be cautious, and protect yourself from cyber crime, theft, etc. And just hope for the best and be positive and look for things to happen, because these are a time of surprises. These are a time of sudden changes, and some of these things will happen really quick. It'll be like, whoop, 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 what just happened? What was that? What was that huge amount of money that just went that way? It's going to be just like that, and it's happening behind the scenes. So stay positive, everyone. Alrighty, item 3, geopolitical. Speaking of all of this geopolitical stuff and what's going on and the propaganda like Space Weather gave everybody the heads up on here this morning. You know, the entire thing with this Bucha thing, where they're saying there was a massacre done by Russian troops, etc. You know, Russia came out and made a statement because they thought it was obvious to all, but they realized the depth of the propaganda right now. And I'll remind everyone, we actually talked about this last week. The last meeting that they had with the Ukrainians and the Russians in negotiations over the situation, face-to-face meeting, you know, Ukraine wanted to see some concessions or movement by Russia, and Russia agreed at that meeting, and it was reported, but not widely reported in the U.S. press, and there's a reason for that they would withdraw some of their troops from around Kiev to lighten up the pressure, to show a measure of good faith, and they did so. And that's why in the Bucha area and all other areas, the Russian troops actually just withdrew. And Russia had to come out with a statement today reminding everyone of that. Because what happened was the Western press didn't report on that, and Ukraine had taken control of all of their media, and the media can only put out what's approved by the government. And so what happened was Russia agreed to this, and in good faith they withdrew, right? Pulled their troops back, and they were going to reposition and do that anyway. They had no intentions of truly taking Kiev. It was just a pressure move. And what happens next? All over the media, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, everywhere, all over, BBC, you name it, the Ukrainians have beaten the Russians back. The Ukrainians countered attack and drove them from away their positions in around Kiev. How about that? Now that's a slick propaganda trick right there. And that is 100% factual and 100% recent. And that's how they do this. And so Russia had to come out today and make a big statement like, you know, we will remind everyone that we agreed to do this in a measure of good faith. Because they're painting it like, and there's a reason behind the psychology too, that Russia's weak. That little old Ukraine can beat them. Now, I'll remind you, I may have mentioned it yesterday about the psychological aspect of this. There's a reason for this, people, and be cautious. Be cautious. Because they're putting forward this dual image. One is of all these horrific and, horrible accusations and crimes that the Russians are doing, destroying cities, indiscriminately killing citizens. Well, they're in a real bind here, the New World Order is, because there are multiple English-speaking individuals who are recording information. They were being as war correspondents there in that area on the line, Mariupol and all these areas, and dozens and dozens and dozens of Ukrainian citizens are coming out and just on film just saying we were attacked by the Ukrainian military. Before the Russians got here, the Ukrainian military would come up with tanks and shoot into apartment buildings. They were destroying places. They were killing people. One lady, I saw her today on one of the films where she was reporting, she said there was Ukrainian snipers going from apartment to apartment, killing people in the apartments and then shooting anyone on the street before the Russians got there. And all the killing of the civilians and everything was by the Ukrainian forces, the Azov, this extreme right sector, the Nazis, right, the Bandera Nazis. And thus the mission of Operation Z of Russia to denazify Ukraine. And the other thing, too, they press so hard, they like trying to say that's like, a myth. There's no Nazis there. Yeah, right. It's pretty intense. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. I won't get into it. I don't have time to. And there's no reason to even talk about it right now. The truth will prevail, right? The truth is like a lion. It needs no defense. You just let it loose. It takes care of itself. And this will all settle out. But what I wanted to get back to, the danger of all this, the New World Order wants to go to war with Russia, but the New World Order knows, and they were warned by Russia, that if you fire one missile is inbound into Russian territory, they will automatically assume, for safety reasons, that it is a nuclear weapon, and they will launch a counterstrike before that missile hits their territory. Okay, so going into Russia or attacking Russia will immediately initiate a nuclear exchange. They have flat out said it. And they have planned for nuclear war for a long time. This whole mutual assured destruction. Yeah, Russia's not into that. They have the underground shelters. They have food. They have the population has designated shelters to go to in the populated areas. They practice once or twice a year on this, and they're fully stocked. Like in the major metropolitan areas of Russia, there are places for every single citizen to go to. They can leave work. They can leave their homes. They're told they have a list of things they should bring with them. They go in. They go in. They're basically, a lot of them are subway systems that are very deep. And an interesting thing, when you go through Moscow, Kaliningrad, all these St. Petersburg, these cities in Russia, if you've ever been there, rode the subways, you'll notice when you get down the bottom of the stairs or the escalator to get in to the actual subway area, you'll notice some of them are like decorated. You can't really notice. Huge, thick doors. They're like 1.5 feet, 2 foot thick. Those are blast doors. Every entrance to the subway has a blast door. That when the people are all in, they close those blast doors. And it's not just a subway tube. There are doors on the side of the subway platforms all down through these things that are actually corridors that lead to shelters that are hidden. So like if you've ever gone there and just ridden around the subway, you probably wouldn't notice. You go down, there's the subway, the tube, whatever. You don't notice these big doors because they're sliding and are off to the side and usually decorated. And you don't even notice anything else because you have the platform. And, in every subway you have like access and work doors behind you on the wall. You don't think anything of them. But those are doors that lead to passageways into massive, massive bunkers. So they actually would do that, initiate that plan, and absorb it. And now here's the danger we're looking at right now, and I want everyone to think about this. The New World Order is using the same playbook that they always use. They're just throwing in some different place. The false flag thing, like the Syrian, Assad gas attack, which was proven 100% to be fraud. It was a false flag. And the White Helmets, that organization that went around, they were facilitating it and filming it and part of the actors. And I'll remind you, Jack Pacific, who's a news guy. He used to be a Navy intel guy, and he works for One American News, which, by the way, DirecTV has banned now. Okay, One American News, they go out there, and I don't know if you've ever watched them, you can watch them online. They do their best to be objective and tell the truth. With no emotion, no political bias. Newsmax has political bias. One American News goes out totally unbiased, the way news used to be decades ago. And they're still trying to maintain that. And whenever in Syria there was this huge thing, and they filmed it, children dying of this gas attack, this hospital, people crying and all this. So Jack Pacific went there for One American News. It's like, okay, nobody's reporting on this, let me go. And he was a Navy intel guy. He went in and he interviewed doctors, he interviewed nurses, he interviewed the people in the community. He went right in the place where the thing was filmed. And doctors, nurses, all the people said, no, nothing like that ever happened. No one, because he was suspicious because it showed doctors and nurses with no mask on, no personal protective equipment, and allegedly all these gas victims in there. And he's like, yeah, something doesn't look right here. Turns out it was all staged. It was all faked. And it was just like people were paid. People were given bags of food and stuff. They're in the area to participate in this thing. And he blew it apart and put it out on One American News. And that is when One American News became a target of the deep state. They're like, okay, you're not going to be out here telling the truth and messing up our narrative. So there were a couple of those. So two of them there that were in Syria that were proven to be false. And we have the United States talking about gas attack. We know Russia's going to use a gas attack, chemical attack. They're going to do this. And the Russians have actually found explosives on different chemical tanks and things there in Ukraine that the Ukrainians put, and they've defused them. And the Ukrainians, I guess, hit a huge tank of some type of chemical and blew it up yesterday. There's a big gas cloud, and there were already people trying to say this is a chemical attack. The Russians did this intentionally, but that's not going to really work, and they're not going to be able to pull this off, even though they're going to try to, and they may. But here's the danger, everyone. You know, you've heard me talk about in the matrix of information, I talk about the basis is factual information. The next level up is historical replication, right? And then above that is what I call the other. Now, historical replication. What we do is we look at things, we ask ourselves questions. Have we ever seen a situation like this before? If we have, what happened during that time and what was the outcome? And then we ask ourselves, what's the probability of the replication or repeat of that same outcome right now? That's historical replication. And it's part of data analysis for short and long-term projection on what could potentially happen. So, looking at that and keeping that in mind, historical replication, what have we seen in the past? Remember 9/11? Yeah, 9/11, the planes hit the towers came down, it was bad. You know, allegedly a aircraft hit the Pentagon. Not much evidence of that, but some hidden evidence, and there's been clips that it was actually a cruise missile, okay? And lo and behold, miraculous, the towers, 5,000 people were killed. It was a tragedy. It was totally devastating. It melted cars. I mean, the heat was intense, but my goodness, it was a miracle. Right around that area on the sidewalk were found passports, perfectly clean, unburned passports that identified the culprits. They were from Afghanistan. It's absolutely amazing. Isn't that such a miracle? And so keeping that in mind, and the next thing that happened, what we're doing, we're invading Afghanistan, okay? Now I won't even go into all that. Oh, you know what? By the way, I want to bring something up real quick about Afghanistan. I don't know if I mentioned this. Afghanistan, the Taliban came out the other day and made an announcement. They are banning all poppy production and opium poppy growth in the nation of Afghanistan, because they say, according to the Quran and the rulings thereof, that it is considered immoral thing to do because it harms people. The heroin and the drugs harm people, so they've made it illegal. Now, this is factual. This isn't the first time it happened. They actually did that a year, I think it was, before we invaded Afghanistan. Yeah, they actually made the same decree, and they received an award from the United Nations, which used to be on the United Nations site, and we talked about this years ago when this happened, and they were actually awarded, and they were actually congratulated by the United Nations for being the first nation to successfully eradicate drug production in their country. That was the Taliban. And then we went in, destroyed them, made the Taliban illegal, ran them out, and the next thing you know, there were poppy fields. They had the largest bumper crop of poppies ever. I won't get into that. That's too far off. But anyway, that's how these things work. Back to the item at hand here, the warning. Okay, so we saw what happened with 9/11, the passports, etc. Now, there is a high degree of probability. I'm not going to say this is going to happen, but we need to be wise about this because of historical replication, right? Or I wouldn't even use it. We need to be on the lookout for a large false flag operation here in the United States. Possibly they'll replicate it and do it the same way. You know, a lot of innocent people killed. Explosive device. It could be like a dirty bomb or a chemical device, a combination of the two, something very horrific. That would be highly televised. Everybody would see it. And lo and behold, my goodness, in the wreckage or nearby, what will they find? Oh my God, it's Russian passports. Dun 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 dun. Vladimir Putin, the evil Vladimir Putin, ordered this attack, this horrible attack against the United States, killing innocent men, women, and children. He must be stopped. Now, the psychology that we've seen, the psychological operations against the American public, the British public, the people of the world, are, again, like I said, that Russia is evil. They're doing horrible things, and they've got this emotional response in people that has been successful, because I will remind you of all the mercenaries, the people, the volunteers from Europe, from the United States, South America, who flocked to help Ukraine. Many of them with no military experience at all. Okay? Flooded there to help these people. Why? Because what they saw on TV, what they heard on Fox News, what they saw on MSNBC, what they saw on the BBC. Okay? And so we know that part of it's working. The other part that's important, and this is very dangerous, we're seeing this this whole false narrative that Russia is weak. Their military is disorganized. Their supply chains broke down. Oh, their equipment is just failing. The little old Ukraine, the small nation of Ukraine, is like kicking their butts. Just wiping them clean, running them out of Kiev. Great victories. The Russians are broken down. They can't survive this. They can never win. Vladimir Putin is desperate. Now, what that does, that gives a false impression of military superiority to people in the United States and Europe. And that is a false impression. I will tell you right now, because everybody is a badass Rambo until the rocket barrage starts. We're talking about a nation with massive weapon systems that they're using right now. And I'll quote someone, a CIA analyst who knows what he's talking about. He was stationed in Russia for years, and retired CIA guy. And he's trying to warn the American public. He said they are not fighting with their fists. Russia is just fighting this with their fingers. They're not putting in their real equipment, their big equipment. They're just doing what needs to be done. And they're still literally wiping Ukraine out. I'll remind you that they have almost cleaned up in Mariupol, and there's just a few hundred of the Azov left there. When they started out, there were 14,000. 14,000. And they only started that operation 3 weeks ago. And they've almost got it wiped clean, and now they're getting ready to do the 60 to 90,000 Ukrainian troops that are on the line of the DPR in eastern Ukraine. And they're going to be trapped there because Russia has been going around hitting the fuel depots, hitting the ammunition depots. Oh, and by the way, there was a big shipment of tanks that came in from some Baltic state that the United States helped transport over, old Soviet-era tanks into Ukraine. And here's a question you can ask yourself. If Ukraine is destroying Russia and has Russia on the run and about to win the war, why do they freaking begging for tanks? That's because Russia has been wiping them out. I will be playing here, like I said I would, the daily update today from the Russian Ministry of Defense. And at the end of that, listen closely, because they give the statistics and show up to total so far. And this is day 40, I believe day 42, day 42 of Operation Z. So in the past 42 days, you can see the total of the aircraft, the helicopters, the tanks and armored vehicles, the artillery pieces, the rocket launchers, special military vehicles that have been wiped out Ukrainian by the Russian military. And it is not insignificant. They have almost destroyed all their working armor. And that's why they're begging for armor, begging for planes, because Russia has destroyed so many of them. So that's the truth of what's happening, is not what's being said in the media. Now, back to the potential danger of this psychological operation and a false flag. After 9/11, when that tragedy happened here in the United States, you had people who worked at companies, you had sports stars, you had all kinds of people said, you know what, this is outrageous. We're going to get revenge. How dare they attack the United States? Now, you're going to get that reaction from this false flag, but it's going to be even more responsive because of the fake propaganda images they've been putting out of these so-called Russian atrocities, many of them done by the Ukrainians. I mean, just absolutely outrageous. And some of them are crisis actors. It's been proven. You're going to have the reaction, the anger reaction, but it's going to be fortified because of the false narrative, weak old Russia. Oh, they're weak. They're scared. And you're going to have all kinds of people who want to be Rambos lining up at the recruiting stations, just like you did after 9/11, if we have historical replication. So I just want to give a heads up to everybody out there. The energetics support this. Historical replication supports this, especially with what I'm seeing, the psychological operations. That's the only thing that explains why they would be doing this. Because when have you ever seen a war where they are not accurately putting out the losses of both sides? They are inaccurately and grossly overstating the losses of Russia, but they never say anything about what's happening in Ukraine. It's magic. So anyway, heads up and be on the lookout for that. So don't want to go too long, rant off. This is the big geopolitical thing right now. I mean, this is battle good against evil and against the Khazarian mafia. So without further ado, here is the daily report in English from the Russian Ministry of Defense. And again, you'll only see this here on PIR. You're not going to find this anywhere else. All right, here we go.
The armed forces of the Russian Federation continue the special military operation in Ukraine. On the morning of April 6, high-precision air and ground-based missiles destroyed 5 fuel storage bases near Radekhov, Kazatin, Prosinaya, Nikolaev, and Novomoskovsk. These facilities have been used to supply fuel to Ukrainian military formations in Kharkov, Nikolaev, and Donbas areas. During the night, operational tactical aviation of the Russian aerospace forces hit 24 military assets of Ukraine, among them 1 ASA AKM anti-aircraft missile system, 5 logistics depots, as well as 11 strong points and areas of Ukrainian military equipment concentration. Russian air defense means shot down 4 Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles in the air near Berdyansk, Gornyak, Uvanskaya, and Chernobyevka. In total, 125 Ukrainian aircraft and 93 helicopters, 407 unmanned aerial vehicles, 227 anti-aircraft missile systems, 1,981 tanks and other armored combat vehicles, 215 multiple launch rocket systems, 854 field artillery and mortars, as well as 1,882 units of special military vehicles were destroyed during the operation.
So there we go. It was funny. While I was playing that, I'm thinking to myself, I'm envisioning Greta looking at me saying, "How dare you tell the truth? How dare you?" So, wow, pretty bold, huh? Remember, in the empire of lies, truth is treason. Oh my gosh. Okay. But, not to make light of it, this is a very tragic thing that's happening, but it was necessary. And I'll remind everyone, too, you dare not. Think about things before you speak, okay? Because people are totally involved in this, and you have to remember about psychological operations. People are victims. It's a form of warfare, and when you see people fall hook, line, and sinker for this, don't blame them. They are literally victims of the walking wounded of PSYOPs. Okay, so you can't begrudge them because PSYOPs is good. I mean, not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying they're very talented at what they do. Without a doubt. All right, so that's that. We'll watch this closely. Again, heads up, and we need to be aware and watching for the potential of a false flag. And if you see one, if a special alert comes out and there's been a big incident, something like that, 9/11 style, remember what I said today, okay? Because the next thing we're going to see is boots on the ground going into not Russia, but Ukraine. Into Ukraine. What a mess. How about that? What a way to help a nation go in and totally destroy the rest of it under the guise of going after Russia. Yeah, this could go sideways real fast, people. So stay on your toes and be aware of this. All right, moving right along. Yeah, that's a big item right now. Item 4, Earth changes. Yeah, taking a look at Earth changes today. We have a lot of tornado activity. And again, remember we're talking about Earth changes. The big keywords are extreme, record-setting, all of this. Yeah, tornado activity in March surged into record territory. There we go, records across the United States. Yeah, there was a lot of severe tornadoes, and we still have deadly storms are continuing in the southeast. I know a lot of our listeners are down there. Yeah, Georgia, South Carolina. Yeah, you're under the risk of many more tornadoes, possibly into Alabama too. So be aware. So what else do we have? Yeah, that's about it. That's really the big news right now in the southeastern United States. The heavy and dangerous weather that is ongoing there. We do have one thing, though. I want to bring this up also with earth changes. Now, this coming week, we're going to see a push coming down from the Arctic Circle of some very cold weather. And we could, in the central part of the United States, in the east, northeast, see temperatures 10 to 20 degrees below normal. Now, see, here's the danger of that. There are areas right now that have plants budding out. We addressed this yesterday with what happened in France. Trees budding out, flowers are up, and all of this. And that's nice. But with these wild swings in temperatures, we could possibly, in some of these areas I'm talking about, the central U.S., northeast, see temperatures get down pretty low really fast. And if there's enough moisture in the air or on the plants, we could have some damaging frost, which could, destroy fruit trees, ground plants, etc. The tip of the day I have for you that has to do with all of this, item 5, tip of the day, is that if you do have plants out, do you have a way to protect them? You know, a lot of people get anxious, it gets warm, and some people who've been down this road, they know better, but you must be able to protect your plants. Keep them inside, keep them in like a hot box or a small greenhouse if you have, before you set them out. And if you do set them out and there is an unseasonable swing of cold weather, know how to protect them. And that can be pretty simple. You can have, like, if you have sufficient amount of like plastic bottles with the bottom cut off, you just put it over the plants, or you can do like a tent of plastic. So if you are doing gardening, which I hope you are, in whatever capacity, be prepared to protect your plants if necessary, because you don't get much warning on this stuff. I mean, sometimes people are out there with flashlights covering their stuff up because the warning came late. Just be prepared to protect your plants, because you don't want all your effort, your work, your seeds, and your potential future harvest, which could be very, very important in these days, damaged. So that's my tip of the day. Make sure you protect your plants. Be careful with them. As we progress into these earth changes, which will get more pronounced with these wild swings in temperature. That is my tip of the day. Look into it. I'm sure many of you are like, got it, Phoenix, been doing it for years. God bless you. But a lot of us, a lot of our listeners, they're new to this. They're starting to like say, hey, wait a minute, maybe I should do something like this. So that is my tip of the day. Last but not least, let's go to the prophetic word of the day by Doug Addison. Doug has for us today, April 6th, 2022. Music and worship will help shift the spiritual atmosphere. Yeah. Okay, so to sum it up, watch what you say today, turn on some tunes, do some inner worship, and let the spiritual atmosphere shift. Oh yeah, anyway, all is good and all is well for those of good intent. All right, that is it. Short, sweet, and to the point for today, everyone. Till tomorrow, be well, stay alert. Remember to check in on how to protect your plants when needed. And also remember, and I think it's becoming very obvious to everyone all over the world, where we go one, we, all of us, go all. God bless.